Well, I'm recording this on what is today, the 4th, I guess. The big news, of course, is that the U.S. went into Venezuela. Big Daddy Trump got his way. It's very dangerous that essentially have a regime, very powerful, that can do anything it wants. And whether that's at the behest of one man, and I doubt that it is, there's a whole faction of people in the U.S., in Washington, who love the idea of regime change. It's very profitable for them and very bad for everybody else. Interestingly, I feel exceedingly smart this morning. My wife saw some kind of news come across, and I checked it, so I assume that it actually is true that airspace over San Juan, Puerto Rico, has been closed. No flights are in or out. That makes me feel smart because it means we beat the deadline by about 2 weeks. We left Puerto Rico and went to California for a week before we came here. We've been here exactly 7 days. And so there you have it. But enough bad news. Mexico City, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is one of the finest places left on earth. How long this remains, and I'll talk about some of the potential downsides that I see with it. You can see this big dome over here is the aviary. It's actually closed right now for renovations, but this entire park, this is part of, not this park in particular, but this is part of the area around Mexico City called Chapultepec Park. Actual Chapultepec Park is a few blocks from here, but this just goes and goes for miles and miles. I'm gonna walk past some of the unbelievably delicious and tasty restaurants that they have. You could not eat at all the good restaurants in Mexico City if you had 10 lifetimes. I'm pretty convinced of it, because it's literally just block after block of people walking, sitting, eating. It's very European in feel. Anybody who has a home, an actual residence in this part of town has done very well on that investment, I have no doubt, but they're very pleasant. Huge, usually gated fences, obviously, to keep the riffraff out. Our friend Mandela. And just a very pleasant walking city, this part of it. Now, Mexico City is just enormous. It's much bigger than anything you can imagine. It's about 25 million people total. So it's one of the biggest cities in the world. And so let's talk about downsides. Well, we knew leaving Puerto Rico that wherever we relocated to, and it came down to Argentina or Mexico, we went with Mexico for its proximity to North America, where I still have a lot of business to do and a lot of reasons to want to be a 2-hour flight instead of a 10-hour flight, which is what it would have been from Buenos Aires. But we knew that one of the risks of living in Mexico City is earthquakes. If you think offshore structures like where to bank, how to invest in foreign real estate, and where to set up your foreign trust are difficult or complicated, they're not. That's not the hard part of creating an international lifestyle. The hardest part is the decision to go. That's why I wrote Secrets of the Expat Adventure, to share with you a deeply personal view of what happens when you decide to cast off the chains of a normal life full of predictable outcomes. I don't want to spoil the ending for you, but you quickly discover yourself living your best life, the life you were meant to live, instead of the one you're stuck with. Across 156 pages, I'll share the incredible adventure I've enjoyed because of my decision to leave my old life behind and create an international lifestyle. I lay out for you the consequences of remaining in a life or location where everything is familiar, contrasting that with the almost magical growth and gain that is possible once you decide to take the path of adventure. There's something deeply mysterious about choosing an adventurous life. Once you commit, helpers appear, and events seem to unfold in an almost magically choreographed manner. You find yourself learning, living, and loving your life in a way that you thought you'd lost forever. There is no financial gain that compares with the recovery of the best parts of yourself. Fortunately, the decision to internationalize is also a great way to get wealthy. I give you real examples of how much easier it was for me to find and profit from the real estate and other investment opportunities I came across simply by choosing to play on the very uneven playing field of developing markets. If you're worried about what's happening in your home country and you're on the fence about whether or not you should create your own plan B, Secrets of the Expat Adventure will give you clarity and inspiration to choose your own path of freedom and adventure. I promise you'll never look at your life the same way again once you discover what an international lifestyle can do for you, your family, and your wealth. To get your copy, click the link below this video. And depending on when you're watching this, you may have caught the news. There was a 6.5 earthquake yesterday morning, and we were moving out of our old apartment huddled in a doorway. It wasn't that bad, but you don't know how bad the shocks are going to be. So they send an alert, which means you got about 20 seconds to get your ass out into the street. That's the protocol. They tell you to run to the center of the boulevard to get away from any debris or falling cinder blocks, right? And I have no doubt that the construction here is not really up to code for the kinds of earthquakes they had. The last big one they had, and this is very unsettling, the last big earthquake Mexico had, they had one in the 90s. I can't remember the exact year. It wasn't terrible, but they had a no-kidding earthquake in 1985 that everybody remembers because I think several thousand people ended up dead. It was very serious, and the city is not made for it. So they built a metropolis of 25 million people on huge fault lines that are guaranteed to crack and move at some point. And we'll all just have to deal with the fallout. It's hard to imagine a serious emergency on that level, on the level of, say, 1985, coming to Mexico City, because it is absolutely, I don't even know if it's survivable. You're going to have to be stocked up on water and food and whatnot, so we will do that now that we've moved into our new apartment. That's just good Boy Scout training. But we're not going to worry about it because there's absolutely nothing else you can do. If you're going to live here, those are the rules. But the other downside, interestingly enough, and you can see one here, I'll zoom in. I just saw, before I went and got the camera and started recording, if you can see him, there's a police pickup truck, and they had a whole entourage of 6 police pickup trucks. Mexico is full of police presence, and it's something that you have to it takes some getting used to, I can tell you. Now, in this case, they had 6 trucks, and usually they staff them and they're full in the back with police or soldiers. In this case, it was National Police, so they're not actually armed to the teeth. I mean, they are, but not with long guns and actual automatic rifles. But you see that everywhere in Mexico, and they ran with their sirens on or playing their sirens from time to time to alert everybody to the police presence. This is standard procedure here. They do this to let all the tourists know, and there are people here from all over the world. We've heard French. There's plenty of Asian, Chinese people visiting Mexico City or possibly living here. Obviously, there's a huge North American population present in Mexico City, about 1.5 million people from the US and Canada, I think, is the number. It's a lot. And they are not always well thought of. But back to the police thing, you have to get used to seeing lots of police. And they, of course, are showing their presence because they have a reason and a need and a logic for doing that. And so that's Mexico for you. I don't particularly like seeing a long string of pickup trucks with armed people driving around the city announcing their presence. Why are they doing that? It speaks of a certain tension, a certain insecurity that the government has about its own population, about the people that they're trying to impress. And so I don't anticipate any problems in Mexico City. I think it's one of the friendliest, probably safest places, quite honestly, where we are, because of all the tourism, because of the huge police presence. But there's no question that Mexico may not be technically a failed state, but the government itself is not really in control of things. Now, we like that. As strange as it may sound, we like the upside of being able to pay people to get certain problems to go away. If you take my meaning, I'm a big fan of that. I've been a big fan of that my entire life. I even did a special video long ago that went semi-viral for my channel on the right way to bribe cops in Mexico. And there is a right and a wrong way. I won't cover that here. Maybe I'll do it again in a future video. But this is Mexico City, so I'm gonna get some footage of some of the great restaurants and show you what it looks like, and I'll wrap up. Thanks. this part of the city, and it's very lovely, very, very civilized. All the streets are named after famous writers, Renaissance philosophers. This is Jules Verne Street. Emilio Castelar, I've never heard of, so I don't know who that is. Mexican patriot, no doubt. But there is just miles and miles of walking areas and eateries, and they are all full. They are all busy. It's a charming part of town. This is the area known as Polanco, more or less. The other really impressive neighborhood is Condesa and Roma Norte. A lot of expats sort of gravitate to these areas. It's pushed prices up, which is an annoyance for the locals. However, the much bigger annoyance that you hear people complain about are the pinche gringo groseros, the people who refuse to assimilate and sort of acknowledge sort of local custom and rules and politeness, and of course refuse to speak Spanish, which is always very strange to me. Virgilio. At night, this place is even busier than you see right now. Crepes, ice cream, street food. It just goes on and on. The street next to us here is also a big, like Miracle Mile kind of shopping center, fresh fruit stands. I have to say the food tastes better in Mexico. It's very strange to notice, but the fruits and vegetables, everything is so fresh, especially the fruits. Everything is so delicious. The food in the restaurants is world class. Even if all you did is come here and just eat, you'd be very impressed. So I'm a fan. Looks like we're going to drop anchor here for a little while. The situation with Venezuela and what this means or will mean in the coming months and years, nobody knows. We'll keep our ear to the ground and I will keep you posted. It's one thing to hear, and God help you if you believe what's being said in the mainstream, but I've heard reports that Trump is a wily fox who has outsmarted the deep state. There's report that the voting equipment and the software that was used to rig U.S. elections came from Venezuela, and that it was operating out of Venezuela, and Trump, clever guy that he is, figured he would do away with that so that our democracy could survive. All right, I guess anything is possible. Obviously, everybody knows the oil argument, that really what Venezuela has that we care about, or that Wall Street cares about, is a big shit ton of oil, largest reserves in the world, and that the purpose of invading a place like Venezuela is to allow Wall Street bankers access to that collateral. I have no doubt that that's going to happen. Whatever puppet regime is put in place will certainly be business friendly to the U.S. I've heard arguments that possibly, right, what's happening here is a play to strangle China's access to that oil. Most of the oil coming out of Venezuela, I'm told, went to China. That might be true. I don't know. Whether or not it means the U.S. is going to choke off Venezuelan oil is perhaps, well, that remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. Venezuela is not producing a lot of oil, about 600,000 barrels according to Bloomberg. That's not a ton, but it might be significant to the Chinese. So we'll see. I have no doubt that this is also, from a strategic level, a very bold move by the U.S. to reassert some kind of presence and force in the Caribbean, in Central and South America, throughout Latin America, to say that, as Trump himself has said, that this is Monroe Doctrine 2.0, Trump doctrine, that we're going to stop people from doing whatever he wants to stop them from doing. And so it is a fact that the Chinese are very, very present all throughout Latin America. Mostly what you see from the Chinese, of course, is that they want to do business. And they want to do business with everybody. And I don't think that stops. I don't think that gets shut down. I don't think this makes a dent in China's ability to do business, but we will see what comes out of the very predictable but also very unpleasant outcome. It's entirely possible that Maduro was taken in a sort of pre-planned raid, that he was handed over. That seems possible to me, the fact that nobody was killed. Obviously, the Venezuelan military force have had 4 months to prepare for actual combat. The idea that low-flying, slow-flying helicopters came in and landed commandos and were able to walk right in and capture this guy. It's entirely possible he was handed over of his own volition, that they wanted it to look a certain way, give Trump his victory, and give Maduro a way down and a way out of power. And who knows what the details of a deal like that would be. But again, who knows the truth on any of this stuff. It will all be speculation until we see what the actual results are. And I think the only thing you can say for certain is that this kind of unilateral action, where the idea that a country is or isn't sovereign and the U.S. can simply come in and make whatever changes it wants by force, is a bad precedent. It's very dangerous that that's happening. It means that probably more such behavior is forthcoming. And for that reason alone, and for all the reasons that I record these videos and created this channel, you need to be thinking about what you would do, gaming out the situation, and then thinking very hard about how you would handle it if things came off the rails. I still think that Latin America is by far the best choice, especially for North Americans, which is primarily my audience. Primarily, the people watching this channel are from North America, but not exclusively. And so, to me, it's just very foolish to ignore one warning sign after another. There's no doubt that this is another step up in what is becoming a very tense world, and how you navigate the next 10 to 20 years will determine whether your family thrives or whether you're, well, either dead or quite possibly just wish you were, because you're alive but broke and broken. That's what happens in war. War breaks people. It doesn't just kill them, it breaks the survivors in a way that they can't be fixed. If you study the unpleasantness that took place in Europe in the last two global conflicts in the 20th century, Europe never recovered from that, not even close. And that's just how it is. And so if we're headed into another period like that, I hope you take very seriously the information that I put out and the warnings. This is not about being frightened of what's happening. It's about understanding with your rose-colored glasses, not just off, but broken. You have to look at the world the way it is. And the way it is that governments, especially when they're threatened or they feel that they're threatened, exert power through force, not through economic pressures, but through actual military force and threat of violence. And that's what's happening. So if you want to talk to me, I make myself available for 15-minute consultations. Unlike some of the other Plan B bros out there, we do not offer a one-size-fits-all. We want you to tell us what you're trying to achieve, and then we will come back with solutions, me and my team, that fit your lifestyle, that make sense to you, that matter, or that make sense to what matters to you. This is a real white glove service. The two questions I'm asked most often and that I get over and over again are, first of all, is going offshore and internationalizing legal? Of course, everything I talk about on this channel is legal. I wouldn't be involved in anything else, and I'd get shut down quickly if I was. But the legal firm that I have teamed up with is a US-based, and the other question that they get over and over again is, yeah, this all sounds great, but I don't have enough money to make it worthwhile. The truth is that the amount of money you need to be concerned about international structuring is really low. If you have $500,000, I understand that's a lot of money for some people, but if you've worked for a period of your life and you're past a certain age, it's entirely likely that you have more than $500,000 in investable net assets, investable net worth to play with. That means you need to structure. And the reason why that number is so low is because even at a $500,000 level, what you find is that your structuring pays for itself in a matter of a couple of years. When you allow your wealth to grow tax deferred, we are not talking about tax avoidance. That's illegal. We're talking about putting off paying taxes on your earnings by structuring your wealth outside of the normal channels by which it would be taxed. When you do that, you allow your money to grow much, much faster. And who doesn't want their wealth to grow much faster? If you're living in the US watching this, you're paying close to 50% of your hard-earned money in taxes. It almost doesn't matter where you live. And certainly if you're earning above a certain level, you're paying a good chunk of that, like half, depending on sort of how much money you make and where you're located, to the government. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a good deal. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, please do. I also put a primer together. If you're new to the whole concept of offshore structuring, check out my primer. It's called the Bulletproof Plan B. It takes about an hour to go through. It will give you a pretty good base for understanding exactly what a Plan B should consist of. It's not, again, this is not a one-size-fits-all. I'm just laying out for you what I call the 4 pillars that will help you in thinking about how and why you should be structured internationally. And once you understand that, if you want to have a conversation with me or my colleagues, we can make that happen for you. I also did a book on my own journey to international living called The Secrets of the Expat Adventure. You can find all those links below this video. Thanks very much. That's enough out of me. And don't forget, your freedom begins the moment you realize nobody's coming to save you. I'll be back with more great stuff.